Welcome back. In the previous step, we pulled a board or two from the storage room and started planning how we were going to get the most out of the board we selected, what pieces we're going to cut. Okay, we ended up looking at this board and seeing how, you know, we can get a couple of top long side by side, a couple of top short side by side, and then some skirt shorts at the end here. That's a great use of our first board. And you're gonna have, you know, obviously we don't have the 20 boards out of that, but it's a good start, and we'll have to keep coming back. So, but that's okay. We'll start with this one. I'll walk you through the process of getting this one cut, and then it's just, you know, rinse and repeat, grab another board. You know, it will get harder at the end because you'll start running out of options. You don't have the big ones anymore. You won't have any more legs to make something like that. So you definitely just want to try to be as efficient as possible when you get to the end. But let's say you finally found a board that you like, that you're going to use on your project, and the next step is you'll have two choices actually, depending on how you decide to lay it out. You know, for this board, I found that if I make a cut at 42 and then a cut at 24 and then a cut at 16, which are like the perfection numbers, which we won't actually cut to those because we have stuff to clean up. But, you know, to me, for this board, it really made sense to do cross cuts first. And then we'll do rip cuts. It makes the board a lot smaller, a lot easier to handle. And because, you know, I'll have 3 3/8 wide eventually for a top, 3 3/8 wide eventually for a top short. Here, I'm going to want 3 for a skirt. So making one big rip cut at the beginning wouldn't be in my best interest. Okay, if you had another scenario, like let's say for a wider board where maybe I can get, you know, a skirt that's 3 and legs that are 2, you know, maybe you definitely want to make your rip cut first because, you know, your skirts are going to be 34, you know, and then 16. And meanwhile, your legs on the top, 15 1/4, 15 1/4, 15 1/4, 15 1/4, you're obviously going to have some cross-cut issues with your rips. And so if that was the way you perfectly maximize the board, you definitely would want to make a rip cut first. You'd take this big board and you'd go make the rip cut first, and then you would make your cross cuts. So 2 different ways to approach it, depending on what gets the most out of the board. But for this board, we're going to do cross cuts first. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I have my jointed edge against the fence. So you see I got this really, hopefully the camera got a good angle here. You can tell that's a real rough edge. Okay, I'm going to put the good edge against the fence because that's going to get me a nice 90-degree corner. Okay, first thing I got to do is clean up that nasty edge of the end of the board. So I'm not, you know, again, right now I know I've got a little wiggle room to work with, so I'm not perfectly making pencil lines and just trying not to waste a bunch. Okay, so you guys have all done this in basic. Left hand here, 6-inch margin of safety. Pull this out first, let it get up to speed. Down. Let it come to a complete stop. There we go. Okay, so now we go from a real oofta, almost looks like a doorstop, real rough end to now we got a nice clean end with a 90-degree angle on there. Okay, now I can make my measurements. So I said my first part I was going to make were my 2 side-by-side top longs. So again, you have to have a pretty wide board to be able to pull that one off. But I don't know, maybe you'll have legs that are 2 and 2 or something on another board. So this could easily come in handy either way. Okay, I am going to make, oh, I guess I'm going to do my long ones first. So they're supposed to be at the end of the day 42. But as you can see in the drawing, and hopefully I explained this well in class, I have the symbol, not sure if you can see that or not, greater than 42. Okay, we are going to cut that down to 42 later. Okay, it's similar to the stretchers on the step stool, how they were at the end were 14.5, but when they started, we first cut them to 16. I didn't explain why, and it was because we had to make some miters perfectly the right length at the end, so your dados would line up. Same thing here. We're gonna be making our tops come together perfectly with 45-degree angle miters in them, so I do not want to cut at 42. So I'm gonna cut somewhere around 43. That's gonna give me some room to work. And since I know I've got it, okay. 2 ways you could do this. You could probably should do that this way. You know, you might have saw I was just about to take my tape measure and line up a tooth to the 43. You know, it's kind of accurate. Oops. Okay. So the better way of doing it would be 43. Okay. So give yourself that 1/8 inch kerf. Okay. Obviously, you probably have to do some of that line making at your table because you'll be in here with more people than me. But notice how I can't make that mark until I clean that end up. So I clean that end up, now I can make the mark. And like I said, you'll probably have to make a cut, go back to the table, make your measurements, and come back. Like I said, since I'm working by myself here. Okay, so now I can move that. I can see that's right in between the two. That looks like it's gonna cut pretty well. Now, here we go. Okay, so that's 42. That's the top longs. Well, I guess it's 43, but you get the idea. So now again, you probably have to go back to the table for this step because the table saw or the miter saw might be a little busy, but 25 and an 1/8. Again, giving yourself that extra inch. Make sure you're nice, square with the fence. Your good edge is against the fence. Okay, so those were oversized as far as length goes. We're gonna need to do that. Now, for most other things, I think the only other thing on your sheet that isn't extra like that is your trim, which we'll worry about trim later. Okay. So now, that's my good end. I flip things around because I'm gonna do a 16. Okay. Now this one you can cut exactly to size because this we're not gonna be cutting 45-degree miters. On your skirts. Those are just going to be perfect rectangles. So if you need a perfect rectangle, now's the time. Okay. So again, good edge. So this end I did cut. I flipped the board. So this end's good. This end's good. This is going to end up. Let's see what I can make out of this actually. Yeah, darn. I was hoping I could get some legs out of that. I don't think I'm going to get much out of this. Oh well. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now that was cut exactly to 16. So I'll have to rip that to 3, rip that to 3 3/8, rip this to 3 3/8. That is unfortunately scrap. The smallest part in our project is 15 1/4. That's our legs. And that's 14 1/2. So, oh well, that's about as inefficient as I wanted to be. But okay, so that is one way of making your first cut, doing the cross cuts. The next thing we're gonna do is the rips on these. And like I said, for some types of wood or some widths, the most efficient way is to rip first. So which one you go to is really based on what you figure out, how you do the math to get the most out of the board. So next we'll do some rip cuts.